Good evening, America, and welcome to this Just the News, Real America's Voice special report, The Battle for Border Security. I'm your host, John Solomon. Tonight, in partnership with our sponsor, Heritage Action for America, we're going to explore the battle being waged all across this nation to restore security to our southern border. The Biden administration has had nearly 2.5 years to work with Congress in order to fix our nation's border crisis. Instead, they have eviscerated the security at the border. Just last month, President Biden signed a resolution marking the official end of all COVID health emergency provisions, including the Trump-era Title 42, which had kept many illegal migrants out of the country. And despite Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas declaring the border is closed and secure, the exact opposite is happening based on everyone who's been to that border. Now, more than ever before, we are seeing a major influx of illegal immigrants and drugs like fentanyl being trafficked into our country, along with children and women. According to our U.S. Customs Border Patrol Agency, the first 7 months of fiscal year 2023 involved nearly 100 people who were encountered who had their name appear on a terrorist watch list. This is more apprehensions of suspected terrorists than all of 2017, 18, 19, and 20, the entire Trump era combined. And just within this last year alone, CPB agents have seized nearly 20,000 pounds of fentanyl, enough to kill over 3.8 billion people. You heard me right, 3.8 billion people. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that as of today, every state has become a border state. Worse yet, every major city across America has been forced into utilizing an abundance of taxpayer dollars to try to address safety and health net issues that are being strained by this illegal migration. Now, Republicans in the House have done much to try to address this. The Democrats, including in the White House and in the Senate, are blocking it. But today we're going to bring you a series of guests who know the frontline story of what's going on at the border. And we're going to begin today with a member of Congress who is at the border often. He serves on the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees. Great friend of this show, Congressman from the great state of Arizona. Congressman, the situation at the border is truly dire, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And we just got numbers out that you had more than 200,000 encounters last month at the border. Most of those people are going to be let into our country. We aren't going to vet them because we don't have the resources and the capability to vet them. And John, when we talk about drugs being interdicted, they're interdicted at the ports of entry. We have massive amounts coming through between the ports of entry. We talk about the human trafficking, the sex trafficking. John, let's just cut to the chase. Just recently retired CBP Chief Ortiz himself said under oath just a few months ago that the cartels control our border, our southern border. And yet today, in a debate I had with a Democrat, he told the world that there is no problem on the border. And he said the cartels do not control the border. And that is just bogus.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely debunked by testimony and documents. It's just incredible to see that they hold that line. I want to ask you this because you have your finger on the pulse of America. You're dealing with constituents and real people. Do Americans buy the Biden line anymore? Have they realized, now, I know what's going on. You're not going to lie to me anymore?
In Arizona, you have a small fragment of Democrats on the left that still believe the Biden line. And it wouldn't matter if you took them down and they got to watch everything that you and I have seen. But the vast majority of Arizonans say, look, we know what's going on. Don't be snowing us. And even our Democrat senators are very concerned about what's happening at the southern border. And I know that they've even requested that the Biden administration do something about it, but they're not getting any more response than I get from the Biden administration.
Amazing. This is going to be a big issue in 2024. I want to ask about something that continues to obfuscate the debate, and that's the new shell game of how we're counting illegal aliens. The Biden administration created 2 other ways where people come into the country unlawfully still, but they get in and they're no longer being counted as illegal migrants. Tell us about that shell game and how much it's manipulating the numbers.
Yeah, there's actually probably several. One is the CBP One app where people can actually John, get this, they can pre-register to come into the country illegally. That's to allow them to be more quickly processed and released into the country. There's another scam that's the parole, the categorical parole that is contrary to our laws and our statutes. So they've got basically two classes. If you're from Nicaragua, Cuba, Colombia, or Haiti, you're going to get in with basically up to 30,000 per month, unvetted, no problem. You get paroled into the country. You're going to work for a couple of years. You're going to be lost. We'll never catch you again. And that goes along with the other parolees that they're letting in. And last year they let in over 300,000. And then I'd say a third one that they're working on now is they're trying to get these resource centers stood up all through the Americas, where people can go in and pre-register, declare their asylum, also contrary to U.S. law, and facilitate getting them into the country and released into the country. So yeah, these are the mechanisms that they're using. Those, and then if you're coming through the port of entry using that CBP1 app, you're not going to be counted as an encounter between the ports of entry. Because why? Because CBP's jurisdiction is between the ports of entry. OFO's jurisdiction is at the port of entry. And that's so they move people over to the port of entry, and they're not counting them.
We used to have fake news. Now we have fake math, thanks to the Biden administration. They say the number's going down, but when you combine these numbers together, it is just as bad as it's ever been, correct?
That's right. You're still right near record numbers, somewhere between 230 to 250,000. That's just encounters and people coming across. John, that doesn't include known gotaways and unknown gotaways, which actually is between 50 and 100,000 people a month.
My goodness, what a travesty. There is a lot of people we could say are doing nothing. Alejandro Mayorkas, Joe Biden, the Senate Democrats, some could even argue some of the Senate Republicans, but you can't say that about the House Republicans. The Secure the Border Act is perhaps the most comprehensive piece of immigration and border security reform ever passed in the Congress in my lifetime in Washington. Tell us why it's important, what its most important tools are.
So you revised the asylum laws. And that's important because everybody that's coming across is declaring asylum. You impose the Remain in Mexico policy, and by doing that, that slows down the number of people that actually come, because they right now, if they can come in, declare asylum, they know that 6 years from now, that's when the first court case is really for them is going to be, and by then they're lost to the system. Whereas if you require them to remain in Mexico, that will keep them out. We're doing things with families and the Flores decision, so where that you're going to keep a family together, but you're going to be able to remove them. And one part that we couldn't get through, John, which would actually be really powerful, is to actually say, if we don't have bed space for you, our law requires us to keep you and detain you until your immigration status is adjudicated. We're going to send you back. We're going to send you back home. And we couldn't get all of our colleagues to join in that, but that was Chip Roy's plan, and is a great plan. And we have got to convince our colleagues of the urgency so they get all of that through. But right now, you're right. The current plan that's sitting in the Senate is the most comprehensive border security plan since in the last 20 some odd years that I've been following this. And although it's not perfect, it would go a long way to slowing this down and taking away the incentives of people that enter this country illegally.
Man, that it would. I have one last question for you, Congressman. There is a big gap of time before the next election. It's clear this issue is going to be a big, major issue in every community in America in the 2024 election. In between that, I wanted just you to have you handicap, how much can the courts potentially help force Joe Biden to do things he's not doing right now? And is there anything that Congress has in its back pocket that it might use in the appropriations bill to create action, even though Joe Biden himself won't act on his own?
Yeah, first part of the question is the courts have actually ruled in favor of border security multiple times, but Alejandro Mayorkas and Department of Homeland Security and CBP leadership has basically found ways to worm their way around it. And sometimes they appeal, and sometimes they just kind of ignore it and go forward. So that's a problem. And our remedy for that is in the appropriation process. Well, there's two remedies. First of all, we should be, in my opinion, impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and removing him. But he probably wouldn't get removed when he went to the Senate. But the second part of it is we have to control the funding and the budget and direct that very specifically and control that. And right now, if they're not going to use it to actually deter entry, they want to use the funds, just so you know, John, and so the audience knows, they want to use those funds to expedite illegal entry. And we want to use those funds to prevent illegal entry and stop the incentives for people to come illegally.
It is shameful what they've tried to do, but you are on the case. And I know something, in a sea of misinformation and dishonesty in Washington, you are a fresh breath of truth, particularly on this issue. Congressman, all the times you've been to the border, all you've done to educate the American people. One thing I've observed of, the everyday Americans, they know what's going on now. It's because of the great work that you and others of your colleagues have done. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, John. My pleasure. Good luck, man.
It's a great honor to have you on. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking to the head of the vice president of the Border Patrol Agents Union. A lot of frontline intelligence on the way right after these messages.